It is 7:32, and I call this meeting to order of the RTM F&B Committee. I'm first going to ask if we can change the agenda and do our minutes first. Do I have a motion on that? Jenny, Bert seconded. And so I'm going to ask Jenny to make a motion on each of those and ask for a second. And go from there. So Jenny, all you.
We have 3 sets. Hello, everybody. We have 3 sets of minutes to approve. I need a motion to move that we review and the minutes for May 24th, June 14th, and September 12th. I see Bert. I see Beth. Thank you.
And we have to amend one of them as written.
Yes, Barry pointed out that there was a typo in the September 12th minutes. The date on the front page should read September 12th instead of June 12th. So
I'm going to have Barry move that. And Mark, are you going to second that? Since you raised your hand every time and I missed you. Okay, so now we have that one amended. So we have the 3 minutes, one of them amended. Is there any other changes necessary? If not, are we ready to vote? If so, everybody raise their hands. Bill, you can just say aye, and we have a unanimous thing. Thank you. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8-0. Okay, so let's go to the next. I need a motion on the resolution. It really helps if I have my glasses. For $169,530 for the design services related to the replacement of the Hanson Road Bridge and authorizing the issuance of bonds and notes in the amount of $169,530 to meet said appropriation. Do I have a motion on that? Who's willing to move that? I have Barry moving it.
I'll second.
Mark seconding. Okay, I'll tell you what I know about it, and then we can have a discussion. What we're actually doing is replacing with this 169,000. We're replacing the capital reserve fund contingency account because the Board of Finance wanted to get this moving. So they authorized the initial payment of 169 appropriation out of that fund. This appropriation will return the 169,000 back into the capital contingency. And based upon some of the closeouts and everything, they don't really have a lot in there. They'll end up with about 270,000 afterwards. Something that Mark asked before he joined us, but I thought it was a great idea, and so we continue it. I spoke to Jen, and the cost of the 169,000 based upon current rates at a 20-year issuance would be approximately $12,000 a year of interest and principal expenses. This is just the design. The cost will be close to $1 million, if not over, to repair. That's a lot for you know, it's really a small bridge, but that's what I'm hearing the estimate is. Is there any discussion on that? Any comments?
Well, Jack, what about Weburn? Isn't the bridge next to Weburn?
Yes.
Can they be asked to, put some money into this?
They can most certainly be asked to put some money into this. I will make that suggestion to Kate and Ed. I don't know if what their response will be, But between you and Mr. Sini, both of which I understand are members, perhaps you can convince them.
Does Weburn have any ownership for that bridge? There, I thought that's all town.
No, it's just that the river is on their property and goes through it.
Yeah, Jack,
Under it.
Jack?
Yeah.
I mean, the road is a town road, our responsibility, but if there's any suggestion or indication that Weburn has not managed the flow of that water through, that's the Stony Brook River.
Yeah.
That maybe the water flow off the golf course might have caused the bridge to be damaged. That's the only reason I would think they might have some responsibility. But I wouldn't.
I would agree. I think you raise a very good point, Barry. I think that's the only point of where they might have some responsibility. I'll raise it. I'll see what they say. But I'm hopeful that Ed has evaluated that already.
I would hope so.
So, but I will definitely add that. I'll send out an email tomorrow, and I'll get back to you before our meeting on Monday. Jenny.
Just a quick question, the 169,000, I know that we've had discussions about bonding things that are of a certain amount or more. And I thought the threshold was higher than this, unless we're just counting the fact that this is the first piece of over $1 million project.
That you are absolutely correct on both points. Had this just been a regular 169,000, I believe there's several of us on this committee who would say no, pay for it. But in this particular case, we are approving the bond, and once the design is known and approved, and they come back for the appropriation for the design, similar to what we've done on the school bonds, we will be amending this bonding resolution to increase it to account for the incremental costs. So you're absolutely right on both points.
I have a question about the actual expense itself. I mean, I don't know what engineering consulting firms cost, but I mean, if you assumed, $500 an hour, $170,000 will get you 33 full-time person weeks. So, I mean, I'm wondering if they've been through a competitive bidding process, both for the engineering firm as well as the estimate of the $1 million to rebuild it.
Give me a second to look at something. Agenda on the bridge. Just so I'm going through some things on this, I'm going to read the executive summary. It was constructed in 1936. None of us were around there. It was last inspected in 2016. They noticed a cracking in the corner of the abutment, and they brought in a structural engineer. The bridge is currently safe to travel over.
I read that, Jack, but my point's different. I'm asking a question about the magnitude of the expense if it's been through a competitive bidding process.
I'm sure that it is, but I will check up on that. I was just trying to see whether or not the 169 also included some of the interim repairs to the bridge.
All right.
So I'll get an answer on that before the meeting on Monday. That's a very good point, Charles. I'll see, but I'm pretty sure that on all this stuff, they're competitive bid, but I will validate that.
Yeah, okay.
We lose nothing by checking that out.
Also, just question on the cost of the actual bridge replacement. it's a small bridge. I have no idea how many small bridges like that there are in town. Is this something that we're going to see more of with other bridges? Because if each small bridge is $1 million, that gets into real money.
Yes, it does. We have a couple bridges that are due for repairs. Rings End has been around for a while. I believe there's there's a bridge over at well, Rings End probably will need another $1 million to be repaired. I believe some of that is covered in the ARPA funds. And I'm sure there's other smaller bridges of the that's there. Hold on, and let me just write down this note so I'm making sure that I have a bidding.
Jack, I think there's quite a few bridges in town.
Yeah, I
If we're
would.
going down that path. And many of them bigger than that one.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because when I saw this, I was thinking, I wonder the shape of all these other bridges and whether or not we're not going to have a significant amount of investment in repairing bridges. And just knowing what some of our bridges were costing, like Rings End and other things like that, when I was looking at some of the damage from Ian in Florida, especially the islands where their bridges were like wiped out,
Yeah.
I was thinking, the folks on that island aren't going to see a bridge there for at least 2 years, and around a significant cost. So just knowing what ours cost, and I'm sure that's not the only one. So,
But on a positive note, some of these bridges are on state roads. We don't have to worry about those.
that is correct. That is correct. There is an advantage of
Which
having.
pocket pays for it, that's all.
Yeah, it matters when they are trying to get it done and which other, because I'm sure the state has a significant number of bridges that are in ill repair throughout the state. And in order to keep our state bonding down, I don't know how often they're going to be able to do that. So, you're right, though, Mark. There are a number of bridges, and if they all need repair, it will be a rather sizable amount. It is worthwhile. I'll get Ed to answer, or I'll speak to Kate and Ed about the status of the bridges, how many, and what the status is. I know that they do inspections annually, which is how they uncovered this, which is good. So, any other questions or comments on this? Do we want to get the answers to this and meet like Monday before the RTM meeting a vote, or are we ready to vote now?
Let's vote now.
Okay.
Vote now. It doesn't sound like we have an option of whether or not to proceed.
Yeah, I would agree. And besides that, knowing several people who live on Hanson, I really don't want to hear from them if we vote. So, all right. Let's see. I just want to double check. I had Barry move it and Mark second. So we're ready to vote. All in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. That's good to go. I did want to just, I'm not going to get into a full discussion, although I will request people's feedback on this. I want to let everyone know some things that are coming down the road. I don't know whether or not we'll be addressing them at the State of the Town. I've been very vocal in rules, and Mark can attest to this, that the state of the town meeting is not a presidential State of the Union. It is more of a recap of what has transpired during the year than giving us a perspective of what's coming on, what new policies and what new plans are, with probably the exception of P&Z that talks about some of the developments that are coming down. I believe that the state of the town meeting is a working session for the RTM and not a 30-minute, let's listen to everyone, get bored, and call it a night. So there is a chance that several of the items that we're seeing will come down the road. Number one, we might see a capital improvement to the schools, which increases the securities on doors. This would be added to all the schools with the exception of Ox Ridge, which already has the system in place. All right. Number two, which we can have a little conversation about later, there's that, by the way, is about $350,000. Unfortunately, there's not enough funds in the capital reserve for them to cover it. So it's going to need to be a general fund.
Per school? Or per school or for all three?
Oh, actually, for 6.
Okay.
It's $500,000 coming down on security guards for the elementary schools carrying guns. That will be emotional debate. We have the potential of increasing the volunteers from receiving $1,000 to $2,000. I've been asked by Kate not to have a long conversation or people sending questions to her until it's discussed at the Board of Selectmen meeting and the Board of Finance meeting. Kate and I have already gone through some of the numbers. And so we know, first of all, let me say that it's a tax credit. So if you don't own anything that's taxable, either a home or you're renting or you don't have a car, you may be volunteering and you get bupkis. All right, that's number one. Number two, the tax credit is considered as income, and therefore, if you do get $1,000, I think you get a 1099, or if not, with tax withheld on it, so that nobody's put at a disadvantage. It's been $1,000 for almost 20 years. It's my understanding that the cost is under $80,000 currently. So if we are doing this, the actual cost, not the number of volunteers and other things like that. If we are doing that, it potentially is less than 1 basis point to the taxes. So we may see that at the state of the town. We'll definitely see that in January, because they want to know, we'll have already gone through the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, and it will be built into the budget. So addressing it in December is probably better than having it in the budget, addressing it in January, and for some reason it not going through, even though I perceive it to be voting for puppies and kittens. The savings that the volunteers present to the town is much more significant than less than $80,000.
Specifically, with volunteers.
I'm sorry?
Specifically, with volunteers.
Most of them are on the fire department.
Most.
I think it's predominantly all, but I can't comment to if there aren't 1 or 2 others who qualify for that I'm unaware of. I believe it's primarily the fire department, if not all of it being the volunteer firemen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, but I'll have more information on that once it goes to the Board of Selectmen. let's see what else we have coming down the road. And as I said, Kate requested, because people were already sending her emails and inquiries, we had a quick chat on this. And I said that I would pass this on. I believe in the month of October, it's going before the board. Then the other thing that I think that's the big one is the guards with firearms in the schools, and a director of finance. What I'm going to ask the group that's here is that Peter Orfanos and I have been given permission to have a series. It's being voted on tonight by the Board of Ed, but we've been given permission to raise a whole bunch of questions that Peter will get answers for. Primarily, Peter is involved in law enforcement. He's known by the chief for being involved, as well as the chair of the Board of Ed. So when he looks at this, he looks at it very much from a law enforcement perspective. Some of the questions that we have is organization. I've been very vocal to the Board of Ed, stating that if in fact this is going on, I want the director of security to have a direct individual person who they are communicating with, as opposed to going into the police department and figuring out, you know, I'm leaving a message, who's getting back to me. And if that person isn't there, to have a second person, so maybe it's a captain, then a lieutenant, and if both of them aren't available, they have direct access to the chief of police. So I want clear and open lines of communication. The Board of Ed has approved a director of mental health. I want a link between the two of them, the director of security and the director of mental health. If you read the director of security, part of what they're there for is being, you know, to address bullying. And what happens even in the elementary school environment is that people might say, oh, those are boys being boys, or kids being kids, or girls being girls. But if the director of mental health is aware that a student feels that they're being bullied or are being bullied, that the security individual would know it, so that they're a little bit more apparent to make sure that child is protected. If this does pass, I would hope that they are somewhat similar to the SROs, where they become part of the community. And the SROs in the high school and middle school, who already carry guns, aren't so much that they're brandishing a gun. It's when children are not comfortable speaking to a social worker or to a school psychologist or even a teacher. Children have actually sat down and spoken to the police officer. Sometimes it involves things that happen in law enforcement and the others. And not that I'm expecting fourth graders to be worried about crime and that. But hopefully the people that they're selecting are part of the, become part of the community in a positive way for the social emotional well-being, as opposed to ever having to use a gun. There's an understanding of what weapons they're going to be carrying. My understanding, and we can, when I get some of the information, we can talk in executive session on that. But we've wanted to make sure that is direct communication between the police department and that SSO should an incident occur. Who's in charge? We do not want an Uvalde where people are sitting around saying, oh, the principal's in charge, or the SSO's in charge, or the police in charge. Basically, principal's always in charge, but the SSO is in charge of the incident. As soon as it happens, as soon as the first cop shows up, the police take over. That's my understanding. So what we're hopeful to do is be able to say that all the right questions have been asked, and we've gotten, and the right questions have been answered. So with that in mind, Peter and I are going to put together some questions this weekend, which he will be submitting to the Board of Ed, to basically Adley and Chief Anderson. So if you do have questions, please feel free to send them to me and we will add them to the list. But we're getting a little tactical on here and getting a little bit out of our lane, but we feel comfortable in getting out of our lane because we happen to have the resource of somebody who's trained in this. So other than that, does anybody have any thoughts, comments, or other things on it? On the guns in elementary schools? Oh, that's good. I was at the education committee last night discussing the matrix. I'll resend the matrix because there's been some things added onto it. The matrix is, as I explained before, it really is set up to define the governance of the town. What's the structure? And then going back to the RTM and who has what. So it helps the rules committee saying, oh, if it's this, it's that. It also helps people on the RTM to understand, oh, if I'm on this committee, here's the breadth of what they're doing. It does encourage, engagement of people on certain committees. I'm interested in waterways, so maybe I'll watch these 4 commissions that are going on. It also provided some information that had me rethink the organization of F&B. I know that Bert and Jenny, you guys talked about pensions, and there's nobody on the RTM watching pensions. We do the library, but then, I realized that when we're doing it, we're the only group who can do the library. It falls into our lap. So anyhow, I'll send that out again. There's a 3-prong attack that's going on in the rules. Lois pointed this out to me, and I think it's pretty strategic and very thoughtful of her. Lois Schneider, who's vice chair, and also the chair of the technology. So we have a technology initiative that's been going on. Mark actually sits on that committee, and they do a lot of work. God bless them. Because it's not all thankful work. Some of it is really grinding some things out for us. So there's a technology part of how we want the RTM to operate. Seth's working on Robert's Rules of Order so that there's a resource on Robert's Rules of Order, again, for how the RTM should operate. And I think part of what we talked about is by modifying the definitions that's in the ordinances, as I mentioned before. When I read it, my mouth dropped. We read it once to Kate here, her mouth dropped, because it still has that the Public Works is responsible for the incinerary. I've lived in this town for 37 plus years, and I don't ever recall an incinerator being here. And when I asked some people who've lived in town their whole life, I was informed that the remnants of it are the bricks behind where the current swap shop is. So, see, Mark, you know that, but the rest of us is like, we had this? So some of these need to be rewritten. We don't really have saying on administration and personnel, and so it shouldn't be in there. And so those are some of the things that we'll work on in the definition. We've sort of worked on the matrix. TGS&A will ultimately be responsible for working with Wayne. That'll come back to us in April or May to the full RTM, providing those of us who are running are reelected. And then we'll have it there, and everybody will have a chance to vet them and play with them and go from there. So other than that, Is there any other business that anybody, go ahead, Jenny.
Just wondering if there is any news on Great Island. Nothing yet.
Well, we haven't purchased it yet. So that's saving us some money this year. It wasn't in the budget anyhow, so it's just as well. But I'm sure with what the estimate was on the on what the cost of the debt was, probably
Here.
needs to be revisited based upon the what is it? About 150 basis points of incremental costs, and being that we probably will see some more in December and March, the long-term debt has gotten a wee bit more expensive.
And that's not, can you, is it, we're looking to close sometime next first quarter, 23, maybe?
The last I've heard, I've asked if we could get any detail. Seth has asked if we can get any detail. Even in executive session, and the answer is there's no detail to give.
Well, I got to ask the question, so.
No, my understanding is they're intending to close March or April. I think it's a safe bet, although I have no information, to the rumors that I'm hearing alleges that the right-of-way is a sticking point, especially with Ziegler's property up for sale. And so they're trying to figure that out. And the other thing is that there may or may not be some other issues that need some resolution. I'm not even going to mention what it is. People can figure it out. Allegedly there may be. So that's best guess. Which are two of the guesses I had. The third one I had is that if you read the purchase agreement, there's a lot of people on that list of who's getting this and this trust fund and that trust fund and this and that. And I'm sure that that's being double checked to make sure that everyone who's supposed to be getting something on it is available to do it and sign it. So that might be the last one. But that's about the most I know on what's going on. And I can't say that I can't walk into the transfer station or work at the swap shop and not have somebody ask me about it. So no comment has become up. You know, I don't know. I really don't know. So anything else? Well, we all want to congratulate Jenny for having a new member enter her family, with her daughter being married 2 weekends ago, right?
Yep, that's right.
So she has one down, 2 to go. That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
But other than that, if there's nothing else, I want to thank everyone for a very good year. We're going to be losing some members. If you haven't heard, it appears that Martha Banks is moving closer to her grandchildren. James Howe, who I've always found to be very valuable and a very stable mind, is now working downtown and is unable to commit to working as much as he would like on the RTM. Been around for 22 years. He was on the Weed Beach Building Committee on that. And, both of them are significant losses. So I just want to mention that. Thank everyone for all the work that you've done this year. Thank my vice chairs for being there, and Jenny for putting up with taking minutes. A thankless job. Wish everyone anyone who's being up for election, knock them dead. With that, I'll take an adjournment since we've missed about 37 minutes of the meeting. I have a motion by Jenny, second. Do I have a second on that? I'll take Bill, and I'll take Charles as it, because just to get him involved in this thing. With all that, everybody in favor of adjourning? Raise your hand. Thank you all. See you next Monday. Oh, I will say, even though we adjourned, please make sure that anyone who is here, who's like absent tonight, shows up. We need 67 votes to opt out of the Hartford Planning and Zoning Auxiliary Apartments. It is 2/3 of the total number of people in the legislative area, not 2/3 of who's there. So we need at least a minimum 70 people, just in case some people don't want to vote for it. But we will need 67 votes. It has to be voted on and approved to opt out by the end of December.
That's next Monday.
That is correct.
Right.
So
So-
Jack,
Yeah.
what is the mechanism by which this particular resolution requires a special proportion of the eligible members as opposed to those present? Is there some sort of?
Yes, it's first of all, as you know, this is we're given the option to opt out by the state law. So we're opting out of the state law. I think because we're opting out of a state law, it requires a 2/3 majority vote. But that's been confirmed by Wayne. And I knew it was 2/3, but I don't know the underlying reason. I just think it's because it's a state law and it makes that. That, Jenny.
I think, and I could be off base here. Was that state piece of opt-in legislation, did that require a mandatory referral from our town? And did we vote? If planning and zoning recommended a negative report under the mandatory referral, then that might have triggered a different RTM
No,
vote.
this isn't.
Okay.
This is a state law on auxiliary. If we do nothing, the state law for auxiliary apartments becomes the law of Darien, or
Okay.
superseding any of our planning and zoning. If we want to opt out, we have the option to opt out, similar to what we did on the parking requirements.
Mhm.
And that requires a 2/3 vote of the body. So, if you don't have an RTM, the vote would be for a town council or something along those lines. So, in this particular case, with 100 open seats, that would require 66 and 2/3, and we haven't figured out who the 2/3 member would be, so it moves up to 67. So that's it.
Thank
I got something from Wayne. I'll try and pass it over on that thing, and I'll pass it to everyone on the committee.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, so we're ready to stop recording. All right, let me tell my assistants to go. Bye, everyone. Have a
you.
pleasant time. Let's see if the Yankees can pull off what the Mets could.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Yeah.